Hello, everybody. Hello, hello.
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 That's the right
We could do
temperature.
a duo, but you don't want to hear me sing.
No, but I might need you to ask me some questions. I thought.
I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I do have questions ready. But,
I figured you would. All
But
right.
I know that this is Nicole Treska, Wonderland, who's definitely somebody who doesn't need anybody to ask questions, but I have them ready in case, you know.
Thank
But
you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Well, thank you for coming to East End Books Ptown. As you can see, we're out here again now that the beautiful public park has been constructed. Cannery Wharf Park back there, you can see this tremendous view. This is one of the few publicly accessible waterfront areas to get to the beach area, so it's pretty remarkable. It also has, you will, I'm sure, hear during the live stream, the nice new European bathroom, but it has one of the few public bathrooms on the East End. For people that want to know or have never been here, it's now here. Also, Pam Art Museum and the library, public library on the East End. So those are the places to go to. So really thrilled to be out here. And Nicole, have a couple things to say in a minute because it's one of my favorite people, and we had fun together in New York a few months back. Perhaps a little too much fun.
Maybe.
It might have been.
A little East Village evening.
For what we can remember. No,
Yeah.
we had a good, and it was, I can never say the name right.
Pangea on 2nd and 11th. It's a
It
great
was
place.
so much fun. The food was fantastic, and then Tyler Mack was
It's in the book.
there
Yeah.
there as well. It turns out doing a little show in the back, and then we sat with him at the bar.
Yeah. Very
So
cool.
that
They
was a
do
lot of
a
fun.
cabaret in the back now. It's become like a real
Oh,
hot
wonderful.
spot for New York nightlife.
If I was in New York more, I would definitely
Yeah,
go
it's a-
there.
it's-
The
it's
cabaret
a great
space looks
place.
good, and then there was fantastic music going
Yeah.
on, live music in the front where we were.
Oh, that's right. They had the band up front. It was a full
It was
evening.
fantastic.
Yeah.
There was a lot
It
going
was.
on.
We made the night.
We did, and who's my little my friend
Arnaldo.
Arnaldo.
Ramsey.
Yes, he is. It was quite an evening, but we digress. I digress. But so I just wanted to let you know. Okay, anyone that tunes in at some point during the live stream, if you tune in before, the event ends and buy the book on the website, we get an email, and I'll check when this is ending while Nicole is signing books. And if you wanted a book that's to you specifically, John, Sally, versus just a signed copy, I'll look at that and we'll get that to you. And then for people that watch later, the recording of this video, which will be on our YouTube channel, we will have signed copies of the book, and then I can arrange to get more signed copies when those run out. So I would say, order as soon as you can. They'll be signed and here available until they run out, and then I get to New York here and there, so I can also get some more copies.
Yeah. Always.
There as well. So we'll be able to do that. Okay, so just on our website are all the events for the whole summer. For our store here and our new store in the Seaport in Boston, which is East End Books Boston Seaport, right next to the ICA Museum. So you can take a look at that schedule. The next event that will be here in Provincetown is on the 24th of July, and we've got Casey Sherman here with his best-selling new book, Blood in the Water. Casey's written many books, including Helltown, and he's also a screenwriter and producer, and we had his producing partner and screenwriting partner here last night, Dave Edge. We had Dave Edge here with the book Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler, who used to train here in the winters, and Dave was in conversation with Kip Diggs, the state representative, who was a pro boxer and knew him. So that was a fascinating evening last night. So Casey Sherman, and then the rest of the week, we have Karen Dukas back with Welcome to Murder Week and House of Beth, Carrie Cullen, and then the end of the month is The Innermost House with Cynthia Blakely. Okay, so then the schedule is on there for August. I wanted to ask you to save the date for an event that's happening, if you're going to be in Provincetown, August 15th at the Commons at 5:30. I'm co-chairing an event with Neil Jacobs that's going to benefit the Boston-based theater group, the Theater Offensive. I'm chairing their capital campaign for their new building that's going to be built in the Fenway. And so this will be a very casual event with food by our local Bespoke Soirees, Greg and Bespoke Soirees, who is phenomenal, and he does most of the events for Ken Folk and Provincetown Art Society and other groups. And then there'll be performers coming from New York and LA. And this is not a high-ticketed event. I think I think it's $20. You can go in here, or you can just turn up. And it's more to introduce people to the Theater Offensive in this new next phase. And they are a theater group that's welcome to everyone, and they perform all across Boston. But it's emphasis on providing opportunities for Black and brown, trans, and queer playwrights. And so they're going to be the first theater company in the country to have their own theater in the Fenway. And that is thanks to Michelle Wu and former Mayor Marty Walsh, who did some remarkable things so that when that theater is built, people are always worried in Boston and expensive cities, you know, the rent keeps going up, you might lose your lease, the person will sell the building and you're out. They have got a 99-year lease with the rent capped at $100 a month for the entire time. So anybody that donates to this organization, it's going to be money well spent. If you can't make this event and you want to know more about the Theater Offensive, we have another event, December 7th. I'm co-chairing an event in Boston with Christy Cashman, the actress and author, at the Quinn. It's a private club, the Quinn, at their newest restaurant called Lunasol, which is like being in Sao Paulo, and that's the latest restaurant that Ken Falk has created there. So there'll be information out about that coming soon. Okay, so, well, Nicole Treska, my friend, is the author of the debut memoir Wonderland, which is bestseller, now out in paperback. It hasn't been out all that
It
long.
came out on the 15th.
Okay,
I
so
feel like it's the bestseller in our hearts. I don't know if it's actually a bestseller.
it's selling a lot.
It is selling well.
I mean, it's selling very well. All my bookstore owner friends are
Really?
selling it.
This is why I'm like,
talking about
it
it.
is.
So it is.
Cool.
But so for those of you who don't know, we have a big biography on the website, the event page, but I want to just say a couple things. That, of course, this is her debut memoir, but her short fiction has appeared in many publications, including New York Tyrant magazine, Epiphany Literary Journal, and many others. Her interviews and reviews are up at the Electric Literature, Guernica, The Millions, Bomb, The Rumpus, and many more. And The Rumpus, I just joined their special membership where you get, which I'm really, The Rumpus has a free newsletter you can get, but they also have a paid membership on Substack.
Yeah, everybody's on Substack.
But they also have a thing that's really cool, because they're a nonprofit. If you donate a little more money, not a huge amount, you get every month 1 to 3 actual letters typed or handwritten by writers,
Really?
mailed to you. And in a time where we're glued to our screens all the time,
Oh, that's
and
really cool.
the mail we get is typically junk mail, it's really nice to get something from a real writer
Yeah.
who's writing to you, you know, not just to me, to me. So anyway, that's the
Oh,
Rumpus.
that is very cool.
So this memoir has been called a touching memoir that brilliantly blends a history of Boston and its surrounding areas with the history of a fascinating and at times functional family. As one girl discovers how to break free from the criminal underworld that surrounds her. And I hope we're going to see here at some point that this book is going to be made into a movie, which it certainly should.
We've been working on it. It is that is its own whole situation, but it is on the table, which is amazing.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great to hear.
But I mean, I feel like you know more about movie stuff than I do. You got
Well, I
me
mean,
for-
so they've optioned it.
No,
They have
no.
not
I
yet.
tried. I will say this. I went to LA during the wildfires, which was perhaps an ominous note to begin with, and tried to write the script, and it did not work out. So
You're going to adapt it yourself.
I was. Now I'm like, please just option it. I don't know what I'm doing. I know how to write a book. I don't know how to write a script. I feel like they're very different.
We should talk, because I'm almost finished adapting 3 Junes.
Oh, yeah.
For the series. I've
No, we
written,
should.
that's going to be not a movie. It's going to be a limited series, 6 episodes, and I've written 5 of the 6. And
That's really cool.
we've got a good cast, and I flew to York to meet with James Norton, who I hope will be able to be in it.
I think you were telling me this one.
Yeah, he's under contention. He's one of the 7 people that could be the new James Bond, and which would be wonderful. He's outstanding. Would not be good for us because he'd be too busy, but it would be wonderful. So yeah, so we're hoping.
Cool.
So maybe,
Yeah.
And I'm I'd love to talk to you another time about that, because I just, when I read this for the first time and I had an early ARC advanced review copy before the hardback came out, I was, I'm reading it as like, I see this movie. it's got to be a movie. So I'm sure it's going to get.
It's very visual.
Options.
I think it has, and I think anything sort of mob adjacent, Boston adjacent is always of interest.
I'm just
for
thinking he was going
movies.
to try to come back, Dave Edge, but off camera, another maybe later tonight
Yeah.
or afterwards, we'll talk about the fact, because it seems to me like this is the perfect kind of book to be made by Dave and Casey Sherman. This is what they did. Helltown's being made into.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so maybe. And they're both screenwriters. Maybe I'll connect you.
Yeah, that
with
would be
them,
great.
Because to me it seemed, and they're all Boston kids. So I mean, the
I do
connection
think-
is so strong.
Here's what I said the last time. The next person I work with for the movie will probably have to be either from Boston or a woman, or there was one third. Oh, poor. Yeah, I worked with a very rich guy, and I was like, we are not talking the same story. So yeah, Boston, there you go.
I mean, you've
That's what
seen,
I'm gonna do.
like Casey and Dave, among the books that got me into movies that they wrote the screenplays and produced were Boston Strong,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did see that.
which was amazing. I don't know if anybody saw the movie or read the book.
That's one
so
that had
this-
Matt Damon?
Yes,
Yeah.
with Matt Damon. So anyway, yeah, we'll talk later.
Cool.
So I'm gonna now.
These earrings are
I'm
metal.
gonna now take the video from your wonderful husband and go to my live streaming mode while you're
Great.
talking, and then I can ask questions and things if you want later.
Cool, thank
And then
you.
I know that this audience has good questions. I can just tell by looking at them. They've got good questions. So thank you. Thank you again for coming.
Thank
I give you
Jim.
Nicole Treska.
Okay.
And am I right about the coolest tattoos anywhere?
Thanks. My favorite is the pizza tattoo. I feel like that's the purest Nicole tattoo that there is.
I hope you'll be going into Spiritus to show them that
to
show them that pizza,
get the pizza in there.
and you probably might get a free slice with that
I
tattoo.
will
think that-
go anywhere I could get a free slice of pizza.
I think the possibility exists.
I'm going to read a little bit, and I'm going to read about Boston because it's a book about Boston. So what I'll say about the book before I start is it's a book about Boston. It is a book that deals with my family's very tangential relationship to the Winter Hill Gang. My father and grandfather specifically were both bookies. And my father went to prison for federal drug trafficking when I was 5. I actually took him home. He had a Leahy appointment this year, and I took him in October. And we stayed in the North End, and he got into the hotel room and opened the window and went, "Oh, that's where the feds busted me at the post office maritime, whatever, right there on the waterfront." So I was like, "Well, I'm glad that we're doing this." So that's kind of, the book is certainly a Boston book, but I also was telling some of our guests here that I moved around a lot. I lived in Denver, Florida, Maine, Hawaii, and now I've been in New York for almost 20 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere, and that is certainly a home now too. So I think the book takes place in a lot of those places, but I think Boston serves as its sort of spiritual and locational anchor. So I'm going to read a little bit about the trip that we took in 2015 to Boston, also to go to the Leahy, because my dad is a Vietnam vet and has a blown out knee from a combat injury. So this is a little bit from the beginning. We passed Bunker Hill Community College. Phil went there for a semester after it opened, not long after he returned from Vietnam. It was a jail before it was a college, Phil said. The community college stood on the grounds of the old Charlestown State Prison, which closed in 1955. The governor called it a bastille that eclipses in infamy any current prison in the United States. The college bore no mark of the prison that came before. That's where they executed Sacco and Vanzetti, my dad told me. Boston's history of violence was long and storied. Its reformatories, prisons, and asylums were renowned and renounced for their sadism, but not until long after the damage was done. Well, an institution's an institution, I suppose, I said. And we're all in the madhouse, kid, he shot back, laughing at his own joke. Phil loved to take the 93 through the city, It was a family point of pride to drive past Mass General, Storrow Drive, the West End, the North End, East Boston, and say, I was born there. The only understanding you could have of Boston was a deeply personal one. Otherwise, you were a tourist. We were on our way to Hancock Street, where my father and his family had lived, to Magoon Square. Oh wait, I got an itch. Sorry. To Magoon Square, more of a triangle than a square, where Broadway and Medford Street intersected. My papa's diner, Christie, sat on Medford Street and once hosted the entirety of the Winter Hill Gang, the Irish arm of the mob syndicate that controlled Boston through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They set up their enemies with the feds and consolidated power. They ran books and armed the IRA and engaged in your typical mob-type behavior, racketeering, robbery, drugs, murder. They converged on my papa's diner late into the night. Most infamous among his clientele were mob bosses Howie Winter and Whitey Bulger. Howie was from Somerville and came to power in 1965 after the Irish mob wars killed or jailed his contemporaries. Whitey from Southie took over in 1978. Whitey was legend. He did time in Alcatraz. His brother was a state senator. There are movies about him. He controlled the Winter Hill Gang, the FBI, and the city of Boston with a calculating intensity until his indictment in 1994, when he disappeared. He spent 16 years on the run. Which is all to say, at my papa's diner, there were booths reserved for the most dangerous criminals in the city, maybe the country. My dad worked at Christie's after Vietnam. On the griddle, Phil felt a clarity he hadn't felt since boot camp at Paris Island. He pumped out omelets and egg and cheese sandwiches at all hours, clean on the plate. Phil short-ordered to order his mind. Treskas know a few things. We can cook, we can fight, and we can fuck. We should have it glorious with innate talent like that. Yet we toil and burn just like everyone else. Christie's location in Winter Hill made it a favorite for Howie and Whitey, but my papa served all the gangsters in Boston. He respected them. He pointed his own sons and even his daughter to break on organized crime's rocky shores. He set his children toward shipwreck. Young and beautiful once, my Auntie Loretta sailed around the restaurant, waiting tables and having affairs with the handsome, handsy mobsters who came and went and turned up dead. To the Treska family, gangs were benevolent. Many of the earners and business owners believed the Winter Hill Gang was worth the cost they exacted. My papa certainly saw them as respectable. He saw his booths filled with patrons and his bank account filled with money, and he considered his affiliation with the Winter Hill Gang a success. What was there to say? Criminals ran Boston. There were only so many paths a person could take on this earth and in that town, so what was wrong with a little money and security? And not for nothing, but if you ran the numbers, you'd find yourself with a pretty strong argument regarding the pursuit of criminal pursuits in America. To be in a gang was to be respected and legitimized. There was nothing petty about the mob, nothing poor. My family members were bit parts in a bigger picture, walk-ons, supporting cast, but they'd be the first to tell you they were in the shot. Our pedigree was proxy, 1 degree removed from first. My parents knew who buried the bodies, and that knowing was currency to many in Boston, a passport through a world with tight borders. That said, I think I know what my papa couldn't know until his heart exploded in the hallway on Hancock Street. The Winter Hill Gang giveth, the Winter Hill Gang taketh away. All our Treska lives and deaths were caught up in the gang's long reach. The diner burned to the ground after my papa died in 1987. My Uncle Bobby locked up and strolled across the street to the hardware store. By the time he came out, the diner was engulfed, oranges and reds sky high. Nothing he could do about it, he said. That's all I'll read. Thanks. Hey.
That's the only excerpt you're going to read from?
You want me to read more? Well, you know what I'll do, actually, is what I'll do is that for the paperback, what we have is a new introduction, and I will say that the trip to the North End that we just took was with Phil 10 years after the trip in the book. So when I got back from that, my editor, Yadon at Simon & Schuster, who is wonderful, but makes me do things I often don't want to do, which I guess is why he's wonderful, said, I need you to write an introduction for the paperback. I thought that was silly and presumptuous. I didn't know what I would have to say in this kind of, I already have a prologue. I was like, how many kind of like, and another thing do you need before we kind of get the book started? But he was insistent, and then I thought about this trip that I had just taken with my dad. So I wrote a brief page of an intro, and I will read that. I will say also that the book starts with, each chapter starts with a photograph, and it was very cool. I'm trying not to bend this edition too much. It was very cool to be able to include, and many of the photos are photos that I took over the years, and then also many of them are sort of family photographs from albums. Like this photo on the cover was in my grandma's photo album. Yeah. And I like this one on the back of me waving, like, bye. Thank you for stopping by. So it was really cool to be able to kind of write this introduction in the way that I think Wonderland is a very circular book about my family and time and Boston and change and the ability to sort of return to Boston with my dad 10 years later and kind of do the same trip, albeit very differently, felt apt. And then I wrote the introduction and I was like, all right, fine, I like that. So one of the reasons that I took him was he had another Leahy appointment, but also I was doing an event at the South End Library. They do an author series there every year. So they had us in February. It felt like a very Boston time to be back in Boston. Leahy is what is Leahy, he says. It's in Burlington. It's a medical facility where my dad goes for his VA stuff. Okay. Thank you, baby. So this is the introduction now. In February 2025, 7 months after Wonderland's hardcover publication, my dad and I rented a car and drove to Boston for the South End Library author series. It was our first trip to Boston since the 2015 trip documented in this memoir. It was also my dad's first book event, and I will be forever jazzed about it. I wrote Wonderland as a love song to my family and to my home to show you how flawed, complete, and deserving of love we are. My dad was a huge part of my research. He let me record our interviews for months. He told me the hard truths about his tour in Vietnam, booking for the Winter Hill Gang, and serving time in prison for drug trafficking. At the South End Library author series, he told the audience about his life, his family, and his regrets. He said it helped him to feel complete about the book, to stand up and say it in front of people, and say it himself. Sorry. Everyone loved him. He said the old man had his say. In the years since the book's publication, the alchemy of spinning dreams and memories onto the page has created much such magic. I met a Treska cousin I never knew, and she shared the kindest memories of my Auntie Loretta. My Auntie Loretta was, amongst many other diagnoses, a paranoid schizophrenic and spent the last 20 years of her life in an institution after my grandparents died. So to kind of get this email from someone that is older than I am that I'd never met, and for her to tell me things about my auntie was like very powerful. I visited towns across New England and rediscovered that actually all the children of New England are my cousins. I found new ways of being and belonging in Boston, a city that, even as everything changes, will always be mine. And importantly, I realized that this book you hold in your hands is a living legacy, a map that helps us find our way home. And that's all I ever wanted.
Oh.
It was nice. They made me do it, but it came out nice. I will say, though, that the email that I got, I started the book in 2000. You're right, I don't need questions. I can just go. I started the book in 2008 when I went into graduate school in New York, and the reason that I wanted to write it was about my Aunt Loretta. She was a whole human, a whole person, and nobody cared about her. She was locked up and forgotten for 20 years, and, we would pick her up for holidays, but every holiday it just felt incredibly sparse that that's all that she had as a life, at least in my life. And to kind of jump into this book from that point and want to be able to tell her story so that in the future, you know, now that the book is out, people say to me, I think about your Aunt Loretta all the time. Like, Auntie Loretta lives in my mind now, and that, like, is the most valuable thing that I've ever done in my life, is give her a life beyond the one that she was capable of, or not even, she lived a very full life, but give her recognition about that life, sort of beyond the boundaries of her own. So I wrote the book kind of for that reason. Parts of my graduate thesis from 2010 are here, short stories that I wrote in 2015 and realized were part of this plot line, timeline are in here. So the book is really a mishmash of the last 20 years, and that intent was always Loretta. So for this cousin of ours, Stephanie, to write an email and say, my husband saw your book reviewed in the Wall Street Journal and said, hey, is this the same Treska as you guys? And then she read it and she wrote me and said, you know, your auntie, who was her cousin, used to come over and bring her her makeup container over, and she used to do my makeup, and we all knew that she was special, but she was so lovely. And it was like I literally, this is a very cheeseball thing to say, but I literally like was on the ground. Like, I got that email and the sort of power of the cycle of, it's like I had wished her into being to tell me these things that I wanted for my auntie, and that I wanted her to be this loved person and have these stories of support and other people who loved her. So it was really wonderful. And yeah, and I feel like that was, I really wrote this for her, and to have that email from who was a stranger and is not a stranger. She's actually like my second cousin. And I'm like, why don't we know the Treskas? But we don't. Like, I feel like I don't know half of my family. So that was really wonderful.
Did you get any pushback? Of course, I know the answer for this already, but for the audience.
From my family?
Yeah, from the family.
Yeah. My mom was like, I can't believe you're doing this. You're a rat. And I guess I am to that extent. But I did, there are many things I did not write about. I did tell my mom, I think at one point, I'll say this. I grew up, one of the things I wanted to explore in this book was the concept of secrets and the damage they do to families over generations. And I think very specifically in my family, it was, don't ever tell anybody that. Like, if this is a problem, you never tell anybody. And I didn't see that help anybody, right? I saw like over generations that just destroyed everyone, and the secrets were bad, and I didn't feel beholden to them, I suppose. So the secrets I did feel beholden to were the ones that were like live cases. Like, if you say anything about this person, they're still alive and they are wanted for murder. If you say anything about these people, like, their children are alive. So it's very funny to write a story about secrets and still keep some. I said I wouldn't do that, but I certainly did, and that informs sort of the way that your family tells you secrets and the why. So yes, I did get pushback from my mom, but my reaction to that was largely, it was a little bit sassy. I said, you can take it up with Simon & Schuster Legal and the Boston Globe. Because those things were there, right? Like, I didn't say anything that wasn't in the archive, so I felt like I threaded a needle to some extent. I was able to talk about things that I felt were important without, doing any real damage, for whatever that means.
What about the audience? Any?
Oh yeah, do you guys have any questions? No. No, she's actually married to oh, did she get over it? Thank you. My husband is AV support all the way around. Thanks, baby. Did she get over it? No. I think that she is married to somebody that is a mobster, and the kind of dedication to that lifestyle tops everything. Like, unless I hadn't done it at all, I wouldn't get anything from her. And in fact, as I would, I'd be like, Mom, like in 1986, like what did happen there? And she'd be like, I don't know. And I'd be like, yes, you do. You're not telling me because you know what I'm doing now, right? Like, so it's like, and I understand that too. And I don't begrudge her those things. But again, I felt like being sort of policed all the time was a strange, like the book isn't about, that I had a bad childhood. It was just always very strange to be like, I know something's wrong here. One of the scenes in the book is when my dad went to prison, my mom told me he was going to camp for 2 years. And I was like 5, 6 years old, and I was like, camp is not 2 years. I would like that, but that's not the case. And like, it felt wrong even as a child, even though I knew that it was being told to me as the truth. Something didn't quite sit right. So I think the book is not even like I need to know the answers to these things or like trying to like expose people. It was more exploring what it was like to grow up amidst things that even as a kid you knew weren't quite right. And I think that is a relatively it's been shocking the amount of people who have identified with that concept. I have a line in the book that says, the children of secrets become adults of best guesses. And I think that gives me like, right? But it's true, and it fucks me up how many people identify with that. Like, that's what I thought was my weird life and my weird secret relationship to not being told the truth. And people from all backgrounds and all places in the country that I've been come up to me and they're like, that one got me. And I'm like, oh shit, what happened to all of us? And the truth is that we've all been told. And one thing that I'm very, very aware of and that I spoke about in the book a lot is how much my parents did for me and how much those secrets were meant to make my life safer and better. And and then you realize that cycle too. These are all parents that are doing their best, and oftentimes their best is pretty flawed, and they're doing their best to keep their children safe, and that often means telling, like, there are very innocent versions of this, where we gave away our dog, Fluffy, and my mom was like, you can't bring dogs across the state line. And like 20 years later, I was like, what are we going to do with the dog? We can't take the... And she was like, you believe that? And like, this... But I believed everything, right? I believed all the lies because I was a kid and they were just telling them to me as kind of a like matter of existing. So, I ended up being a very naive adult kind of coming into the world. I've been very protected, I think, and that is both a good thing and made me feel very, very exposed once I was like, wait, you guys have all been lying to me? But for good, yeah. Yes. Yeah. The question was, I grew up protected and yet all this was going on, so what was the protection? I think it was those sort of untruths, like, your dad's not going to prison, he's going to camp. Like, I won't tell you... I remember my mom saying he dealt drugs, which was true. But then when I went in the Globe, it was federal drug trafficking. And I'm like, that's a very different thing than like selling pot in summer. But like, there were kind of, everything was played down. My mother said that when I was 3, she was pregnant with my sister. Malia is my niece here, her mother. And this is a lovely family story, boobala. My mother said my father slapped her into the fridge when she was pregnant, and I was playing my little toy xylophone in the kitchen on Hancock Street and looked at her and then just went back to playing. And she was like, I gotta get these kids out of here. That never happened before. She used to cry. She noticed it was being normalized for me, violence, and so she moved us out of Boston, and you know, my mom does not like that I've done this. We are on two sides of a national story right now, I will say. We have a lot of differences, but who would I have been if we hadn't left then from, you know, with my father in jail and like the violence? It was a huge gift that she gave us to move it. And then I was telling these guys, I moved around every 3-6 months as a kid, so that gift came with its own weird side effects where I was just kind of getting dropped everywhere. We were in Portland a few days ago, and I lived in Brunswick for 4 years. That was one of our first stops after we left Boston. And my friend there, Jamila, was from Afghanistan, and they'd come over as asylum seekers, and she is now in East Boston at the Albert Einstein Institute for Nonviolence, which is a very cool organization I did not even know about until Jamila. They are working for nonviolent revolution via the Einstein papers. But she did an event with me last summer. Yeah, just as a side note, that's very cool. But she did an event with me, and we were 10 together, and she was like, I didn't know you were one of us, like a displaced child, because we moved so much. And I think about that, and one of the joys I have of bringing Malia here is that this is where I'm not displaced. This is like the only place I don't feel like I don't belong. Every time I come to New England, very specifically Massachusetts, I'm like, oh God, oh no, this is where I'm from. Like, this is where I am, deeply where I am from. So I think, you know, they did so much to protect us, and yet it's like it still ended up growing up anywhere but my home. But that's the kind of cost of getting your kids out of a bad situation, I think. Yeah.
I can't wait to read the book.
Thanks.
Having done all this research
Yeah.
and interviews and all that you've done with it, and then talking about it like you're talking now
Yeah.
a lot, do you feel changed?
Oh, yeah.
And were you surprised by the ways that you feel after all of this?
Yeah, the question was, after doing all the interviews and talking about it a lot, do I feel changed and surprised by that change? Totally. I think one of the big changes was, even in the drafting of the book, my editor said, you're not in this book. Your name is on the book, your face is on the cover, the back, and the spine. Cheeky, isn't it? I was like, I can't believe that they're putting my face on the spine of the book. But he was right. I had been always sort of an observer, even in the interview process with my family, observing them. And in the draft of the book, it was very much like, let me tell you about my mom and my dad and my uncles and my auntie, and this is what happened. And it was a very revelatory thing to have to write myself into my own life. Like, it did, but then I also realized I'd always been sort of an observer. I always read books. I always sat at the fringe of the family and just watched what was going on. So I felt very empowered by writing the book, I think, to be able to say to my mom, like, well, take it up with the Globe. Like, that's an insane independence for me to feel from what I think is like a very clannish kind of family background. And then in the year since, it's been, yeah, I feel like it's all given me permission to be both a Bostonian in a different way than I was as a kid, than I was, I did an event at the Harvard Club with Isaac Fitzgerald, whose book, Dirtbag, Massachusetts. It's 3 years out today, so. And at the Harvard Club, I was like, who let me in here? Like, I'm from East Boston. We're not supposed to be in here. Like, so I felt like, one of the themes in the book was like, she's from the wrong side of town, this kid. Like, we don't know where we got this kid. And to be able to sort of go back home in a way that is more me than just my family. And not that I don't love Harvard. I went to public schools. I went to public colleges. But, like, I'm a book nerd, and so, like, those things that felt sort of unavailable to me in Boston, I get to go back to and, like, enjoy in my own kind of way. Like, nobody's making fun of me for going to the museum, which they did. Like, what is that? That's crazy. But yeah, I think that's it. I feel like I have a lot more permission, not just about the family, but as a writer as well, and to be able to like, and you know, a lot of my family have read it, like cousin Marcia and her sister, and for me to be able to be like, did I do a good job? And for them to be like, yeah, no, that's right. Because the other thing about the kind of protective stories my family's told me is like, they're often like, that's not what happened, you're crazy, and they're gaslighting me. Like, it is what happened, and by telling me it's not, they're very much just trying to turn this into like, no, shut up, stop talking about it. So for me to have like family members from my mother's generation read it and tell me that it's true, and for my dad to be like, yeah, that's all correct, makes me also feel like less like I lied or something, because like, that's how you know, you're just like, did it, like, is it today, am I getting it right? And then I'm like, God damn it, I am getting it right. You've just been telling me no so that I stop, right? So it's given me that, I don't doubt my own memories as much anymore, which is great. Yeah, because I think they're right. That's a good question. Anybody else? Yeah.
Does your sister remember things the same way?
No. Does my sister remember things the same way? No, that's a really good question. And, you know, in the acknowledgements, I thank her as my soulmate, because she's 3 years younger than me, and we did all of this together. She's the only person I know who went through everything I went through in the same time and in the same subordinate position, right? Like these two little kids sort of moving through all of this. And also, there's a part of this book that deals with Lindsay's husband and Malia's father's heroin addiction, which was very ongoing in our adult lives, and that's part of the current timeline. And, you know, when we've talked, my sister was Lindsay was very generous and was like, you got it all right. Like, all the facts are right. I don't feel that way about, and in fact, in one thing, I had said a sentence that was, you know, like something like, she loved her kids and she loved her husband, even though this was hard. And she read it and she said, but I had grown to hate him by that point because of... And so I changed that to reflect her feelings there. But I think that, you know, she said to me just the other day, Nicole, I don't think we had a bad childhood. I just don't think it was that strange. And I was like, well, I don't think we had a bad childhood, but Dad went to prison. I went to 6 first grades. Like, it was weird. It was like actively, undeniably not atypical. But I think that her position is much more, I think, infidelity to the family, and mine feels more like a black sheep coming out and being like, I have some thoughts. So I think that she's been so gracious, but I know that she sees things differently than I do. And I tried, I think, more than with our childhood, very much with her marriage, to honor what her thoughts were about that and not make them my own. And that's true with everybody in the family, I think. Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Did you, how hard was it to get this book published?
How hard was it to get the book published? It was not as hard as I thought it would be. It was an editorial issue. It went out to... Well, I mean, okay, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I started it in 2008, so by one account, it was very hard to get published. I lived in New York for 10 years before I got an agent, maybe more than that, 12 or 13 years trying to get an agent, trying to get work published. So I think building a writing career to the degree that I had an agent and was able to sell the book, that took a very long time. Once I got the draft, which last year Jeff was lucky enough to meet my agent, Annie. She was a writer first and called me and said, write 20 stories that you've told me about your parents, because I used to like go to dinner with her after my dad would leave, and I'd be like, you're never gonna fucking believe what my dad just did. he's being catfished on Facebook by a lady who says she's stuck in Kenya, but she is clearly not real, right? Like so I would go out to eat with her and I would just tell her these family things that were going on, and she was like, just write me 20 of them and we'll go from there. So I did that, and that became the book. She sent it out and it was rejected 17 times, and then the 18th person was Yadon at Simon & Schuster. So I think it was good. It was great. I think at one point I said to my buddy, I'm sure it's going to sell. Somebody's going to buy it. I'm sure somebody will buy it. And then the next day I was like, Simon & Schuster bought it. Which was nice. Like, I was definitely like, it had been, it's sending your book out is an insanely stressful thing. But yeah, I think ultimately it was not as bad as it could have felt.
Not bad at all.
No,
That's what,
no.
what a lot of people go through, as
Well,
other authors could tell you here.
But this is this is the thing that that was interesting, is that, like I'd mentioned, I wasn't in the book really, and my editor at one point, I think it was a nice thing to say, James thinks it was a little cheeky. He said, I would have had to pay you twice as much if this book were in the right order when I got it. It is a little cheeky when I say it back, but he had meant that, you know, the way I'd written the draft first was very stream of consciousness, almost going through, you know, well, my mom told me about my dad in jail, and then when my mom and my dad's wife got on that fight on the stoop in East Boston, that was like a few years before he went to jail, but then when I was in New York and he borrowed money, so it was very just jumping around based on where the memories led me. And he was like, babe, you need a structure. Like, this can't work that way. You need, and I think that if I had sold it to a smaller press, they might have let me get away with that. But at a press where they're putting out thousands of books, they need people to read it that aren't just like in an MFA program in Manhattan, which is like, which I'm very grateful for, because it expanded how I write an awful lot. But I would say that was one of the biggest challenges, was putting it in the right order and figuring that narrative structure out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, anybody else?
I really like what you said about secrets. Can you
Yeah.
say that again?
Yeah. It was the children, I'm like, what is that line? It's that the children of secrets become the adults of best guesses.
That's really what's happening with me.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, I'm from Somerville. My mother slept around with a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
gangs.
Yeah. Oh, hello, Mike. You are my cousin. Mic up, baby.
Gotta press the button.
Hit this button here.
Really? You really want me to?
Yeah. We're talking now.
She slept around a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have 5 brothers and we all have different
Yeah.
fathers. And
Did you guys know that growing up?
No.
Yeah, this is the secrets.
We found that out when one of my
Somebody
brothers
did a
was
DNA.
dying,
Oh.
and we decided to do a DNA test.
Yes.
Because people came out of the woodwork, and, you know, we were all splintered. We weren't connected at all as a
Right.
family, and so this brother that was dying brought us back together. What did I want to tell you? There was this. My mother also had a lot of boyfriends that lived with us.
Yeah.
And we grew up on the Ave, across from all the bars on Somerville Ave. And I
She was like,
yeah.
you gotta go where you gotta go.
But
Sorry.
my brother ran into one of the boyfriends who was closer to my age than my mother's age.
Yeah.
And he's still alive. He's in his early 70s. And it turns out that he was a bookie. And, you know, my mother was involved in all
Yeah.
that shit.
Of
you know?
course.
I mean, there were women coming to the house with guns
Yeah.
saying, you know, stay away from my husband.
Right.
It was really crazy shit.
Yeah.
And
That's how it was, though.
yeah, but your point about the secrets. So my brother and I have 2 brothers
Yeah.
left. We're now left with trying to figure it out, and we're so angry.
Yeah.
Especially me, because I have no one to talk to about it.
I'll give you my email. I've been in a lot of therapy about it. I mean,
There's nobody that I can figure
Yeah,
out, like,
yeah, you can't get to the bottom of it.
No, some of them found who their fathers were through the ancestry.coms, but I haven't been able to make that connection. But the secrets, it's just killing us.
And I think, and I'm really sorry, and I think that is, like, I think that I have given a lot of grace, I think, to write the book from a perspective of grace and love as opposed to anger, and those are both real. It was a narrative choice to not write angry about people that I'm angry about, right? Because I didn't want it to be that. It's called Wonderland. It's about yeah, like, but that's what I wanted. I wanted it because I also really love these people, and I think that those are two avenues. They're two sides of that coin. Is like the love you have for those people and the life that you've lived, and also the anger and the questions. And I think that so it's not super magnanimous entire. The choice in the book was magnanimous. The feelings that I have are both of those feelings. I have a lot of anger as well. Like for a lot of things, but I think with regards to the secrets, I don't know that the answers would make you feel that much better. Like ultimately, they might scratch an itch, but they're not going. We've had the lives we've had. If we had the answers to everything in front of us, I think. Do you guys ever think like, when I die and I go to heaven, I would like to know where my keys were that one time? I don't know that those answers are more than that, right? More than just sort of like, oh, right, okay, so it was Steve from down the block and not like Joe from up the corner. So, I think that how you get out of being angry about it is choosing, though, to find that piece that you have, or the connection you still have with your brothers, or the way to tell the story in a way that makes you feel whole. Because like it's your wholeness, especially if everybody else is gone, right? Like it's like, who are you even mad at now? They're dead, and I think that's something that I thought about a lot. My uncle, and I will say this in that same vein. My uncle Dennis, who is my father's youngest brother, died of a heroin overdose. He is in the book as sort of a foil to your dad, who is also dealing with a heroin addiction and the sort of American nightmare of heroin addiction that is everywhere, but was, even before it was everywhere, very much a Boston thing. I have so many dead cousins, so many dead uncles. Dennis went on a 3-town car chase through Charlestown, Watertown, and where did he start? Medford, maybe? He robbed a Cumberland Farms. It's a very Boston thing to do. He drove through a police barricade once he did his little 3-town roundabout, and as he drove through the police barricade, they opened fire and killed the kid in the car with him. And this ring here is a ring he stole from a house in Boston. He used to rob all the houses in like the rich neighborhoods, and he would sell them to my grandmother, his mother, for heroin money, and she knew it, and he knew it. And after he died, she gave this to me and said, "Don't tell anyone." But this is from your uncle, and he loved you very much, right? So, arguably, Uncle Dennis was a real shitbag. But I think everybody thought that about him, and I think, the newspapers talked about him like that, and the family, even though the family mourns him, he's talked about in a very, sort of way. And I read all the Boston Globe articles, and I kept fixating on the fact that he was 24. And I was like, he's a baby. That's a baby. Like, I'm 45. The kid, those are the children I teach. That's a baby that was already. And then my father, in the process of researching, at the very end of the editing process, he said to me, I think that Dennis was as sick as Loretta. Nobody ever said that. Nobody in my life had said that Dennis was probably also schizophrenic. And so I think you have that choice. Like, I got some information that helped me to think about Dennis with love and forgiveness, because nobody else really did, and like we all deserve that. So it's like, I think that's important too. It's like Boston is full of shitbags, and we're related to so many of them that like you have to kind of find your way to the grace in them because they've got it, you know. And so I'm sorry I made you cry. but it's true. There's every single person. That's the thing that the book brought to me, was grace. Is that we get to give that to people, and especially if we're in a position, in ways that they provided for us to give more of that. Like I can give more grace than my mother and my father can because of the things they did for me. So you can do that too. Yeah, we should get a drink maybe. I don't know. That was a good question.
Well,
That sounds.
there are no other questions.
Yeah, I feel like
can-
that's a good
thank
place
you.
to. Thank you
We can,
so much.
we can go to
Thank
book
you.
signing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.